Once upon a time, in the busy city of Lagos, there lived a beautiful girl named Veronica. Veronica is a very rich lady and owned so many businesses in the city of Lagos. Veronica had two friends, Mildred and Emerald. Veronica is a very smart lady. She wasn't just a graduate of aeronautic engineering, but had gone further to establish herself through reading various courses. One fateful evening, after the close of work, Veronica walked into her dad lying on a cold floor. Her dad had just passed out. She looked for her mother everywhere but couldn't find her. So she quickly rushed her dad to the clinic. Few minutes later, she got a call, and the caller stated that her mom was involved in an accident and didn't make it. Tears rolled down her eyes. She then knew what had led to her father's sudden collapse. Her father, Mr. Kenneth, got married to his high school love, Precious, and they had worked together to build the life they had. Kenneth and his wife, Precious, did everything together. They were inseparable. Their daughter loved their bond and dreamt of having a love like theirs. Kenneth was supposed to take his beloved wife, Precious, to go make her hair that day as normal, as he had always done that. While preparing to go drop Precious at the salon, Veronica had called to inform him of an impromptu meeting that was holding soon. So Precious decided to go to the salon all alone. But 30 minutes later, he got a call that his wife was involved in an accident and didn't make it. Kenneth slipped into coma. Veronica was heartbroken by all that was happening. This wasn't the plan. She can't lose both of her parents. She cried her eyes, but the greatest gift she could ever ask for was her friends who stood by her all along. While Kenneth was in coma, Veronica refused to bury her mother. She had promised to wait up until her father wakes up. She went back to work like somebody nothing had happened to. She left her big mansion and rented an apartment close to the hospital so as to be very close to her dad. She always went to the hospital every day to clean her dad's body, read him newspaper, as her dad never fails to read newspaper every day. She also sprays him his favorite perfume. One day, her father's brothers and kinsmen came to the house to take what was remaining of Kenneth. After Veronica had asked the maid to serve them food, when they were done eating, she quickly asked them why they had visited, as none of them had visited in a very long while. One of the kinsmen spoke up and told her that they had come to take what was remaining of their brother. She was so angry. She was burning with anger as she couldn't believe the words coming out of their mouths. Her dad was still alive. He was just in coma. So she looked at him and told him, "I'm sorry, sir. My dad is still alive and is still in coma. So there is nothing for you to take. You have to wait for him to wake up. And whatsoever he has to give to you, that is what he is going to give to you. But for now, if you don't mind, you may leave." So Veronica quickly called the security men and some other hefty men to help escort them out of the mansion. Veronica is a major part of her both friends' success, as she always assisted them whenever they needed her to. Though she always kept a track of their businesses, as she was their biggest investor, and she doesn't like to lose money in any way. She doesn't trade where she was going to lose money. Emerald envied her and wanted to live like her, but she couldn't, as she was the most extravagant amongst the three friends. When it comes to Emerald, Veronica always trades with caution, as most of her businesses that she had brought to her always sounded fake, and Veronica had lost so much money because of that. One day, Veronica had told her friends how she wanted to fulfill her father's plan to build homes for 100 families. This was a plan that took up after his company had held a competition in a secondary school. The prize was a job in his company and 5 million naira to whosoever won the competition. A boy named Amaka at that time won the competition. But when it was time to receive the award, Emeka asked if he could rebuild their home, as the 5 million naira wasn't a big deal to them. So Mr. Kenneth was moved by the boy's decision and decided to go visit his home. After Mr. Kenneth had visited Emeka's home, he found out that it wasn't just Emeka that was living in such an environment, but there were other people living in such. So he decided to rebuild the houses of 100 people. Veronica stated the way she wanted the project to be to the hearing of her friends. They were so excited for her as they prayed that the project turns out to be a success. Veronica went further to state that she wanted the best architect to win this project. So it was made known in the company website. Different architectural firms started applying, and a date was fixed for presentation and showcase. One fateful evening, while Veronica had stopped at a restaurant to get food she was going to eat while in the hospital, she forgot her ATM in her car as she had used it to get petrol and had forgotten to return it into her bag. A young man had offered to pay for her. She thanked him and asked for his details so as to refund, but the young man, being Emmanuel, refused, but asked for her number. She had to give since he was kind and had saved her some embarrassment. The day for the presentation had come. Veronica was surprised to see Emmanuel. She never knew he was an architect, as he never made mention of that. As other films were presenting, their ideas seemed very nice to Veronica, but she wanted all films to present so as to pick the best person. It was time for Emmanuel to present. Emmanuel had his design exactly the same way Veronica wanted. She was shocked at first, as she had not made mention of how she wanted it to be to any of the companies except to her friend. She was really surprised. So Emmanuel got the contract, as he was the one that got exactly what she needed in the project. Gradually, Emmanuel invited her for lunch dates, as Veronica never went for dinner as she had to visit her father every day. The project was to commence. The architect was to meet the building engineer to get started. One fateful day, Emmanuel decided to visit his mother since his business was close to her home. On getting there, he was surprised that their home had been demolished. So he quickly called her and she told him where she was. It was a very big, beautiful apartment, and he asked his mother what had happened to their home. She explained everything to Emmanuel, how a young man's son in the area had won a competition and a particular firm decided to rebuild their homes. This was when it became clear to him that the building project he was designing was for his mother and 99 others. He was so amused as how a family would choose to be so nice to the poor masses. He was so glad that such a breakthrough was coming for his family. There and then, he promised himself never to joke with this contract. Emmanuel wasn't an architect, but was contracted by one of Veronica's friends, so she could steal lots of money from her using the project. But after Emmanuel had found out about his mother, he couldn't go on with it, as the plan was to use inferior materials. So when anything happens, Veronica and her family will be held accountable for using inferior things and rendering the life of so many in danger. Emmanuel gave this a deep thought. How can he tell Veronica without ruining the friendship that was gradually developing? Though he met with his employee every Friday to give a feedback on the project and how it was going. To Emmanuel, it was a whole lot, and he wasn't just the only fake person in this project. Keeping this truth was going to ruin a lot of lives and a lot of families. But even the building engineer and the contractors in this same project, so many of them were fake. The weight was too much to bear for Emmanuel. So one day he spoke up and told Veronica of how they were. So one day he spoke up and told Veronica how they were fraudsters, and if she used them, she was going to lose a whole lot. Veronica listened carefully to everything he said. She was shocked when she heard the name Mildred Okoro. Who would have thought that Mildred could do such to her? She was always pretending to be okay with everything Veronica did. Veronica was so heartbroken. She cried her eyes. She then asked Emmanuel why he had spoken up, but Emmanuel refused to say a word. He just told her he couldn't go on with the plan anymore. Veronica thanked him greatly. That night, while she was by her father's bed, she thought of the best way to get Mildred arrested for what she had done. After 2 days, Veronica withdrew all her shares from Mildred's company, as Mildred wasn't even in construction but beauty products. So how could she go as far as this just to hurt her and ruin her family's reputation? She couldn't believe that Mildred could go as far as this to ruin her business, her family, and innocent lives. That afternoon, while Veronica was seated in her office, Mildred came crying crocodile tears as while Veronica had withdrawn all her shares from the company. But instead of Veronica to explain anything to Mildred, Veronica got her and her accomplice arrested and started the project with a new company. Mildred was charged to court. Veronica asked everyone, including Emmanuel, as Emmanuel was willing to turn himself in, leaving Mildred in deep thought on how Veronica had found out about her plans, as she had not spilled anything to the hearing of Emerald. After the court hearing, Mildred was charged with a huge fine and 1 year in prison. Most of the workers denied her and they got punishment but later released. Mildred, unrepented, while in the prison, thought of another way to get everything Veronica has and tarnish her reputation, as she had long waited for an opportunity to ruin Veronica's family. But no one knew why Mildred was hell bent on destroying Veronica's home. So we've come to an end of part one of the story. But before I leave you, I would like to ask a simple question. From the twist of the story, who do you think plotted the accident of Mrs. Precious Kenneth?